Welcome to a new episode of the Advancing Consciousness series with Franco Di Nicola. This is a place where people can come to gain further insight and clarity as to what is going on and how we can shift things on a personal and global level, while also accessing higher levels of consciousness and awareness. We bring this series to you free of charge so that many are able to access this information. However, if you resonate with what Franco shares and you would like to support his work, contributions are welcomed and greatly appreciated. A link is in the description and will be provided in the chat if you feel guided to do so. Also, we have many previous workshops, such as a couple of our most recent, Maneuvering with Neutrality and Alignment during this next wave of unfoldments, and Deprogram Clearing Empowerment Workshop. You could also join us in our membership program, Let's Talk About You, where like-minded people come together bi-weekly to talk about the topics requiring deeper understanding and clarity. All of these are available on Teachable, and we encourage you to check them out as they are great resources at very affordable prices to assist in better understanding this human experience. The Teachable link will also be provided in the chat and description. And lastly, don't forget to share. As the more of us coming together and creating a shift in oneself, the more effective it'll be to shift things globally. Thank you for joining us and being part of the change. Enjoy today's broadcast.
Everybody, to another episode of Advancing Consciousness series. This is the powerful series that we have put together, meaning you guys and ourselves, here to really stimulate, awaken, and re-trigger your own true knowing. And by doing so, you get to use what you have as a capability within yourself. All of us had to play this game. All of us went through the different intensities, and we've kind of shut ourselves down to a certain degree. And now we're giving ourselves the opportunity to really reawaken, to really access what we came here to do. So today's episode is episode 46, and we're going to be talking about the political climate, our free will, sovereignty, and the galactic involvement. And it was really instrumental today to look in those areas because of everything that is playing out right now on the planet. And even though some of it is focused in certain parts of the world, like North America, it does affect the whole world. It's not that North America is impactful. It is to some degree, but really a degree of all of this is playing out all over the world. And plus the things that we have gone through, some of these lockdowns, shutdowns, and the bringing forth all of this stuff once again for us to revisit, it becomes very powerful for us to really use more of our capacities and capabilities so that we can actually navigate in a more powerful way than we have before. So here we are. Today we've put together this episode to bring us to another level of ourselves so we can better navigate, shape not only our reality, but the reality of all the people around us and our collective. And of course, being part of the transformation the world is going through. So right now, things are intense, very powerful, and so forth. It may look extremely chaotic, but in one way or another, we have come together to make this happen. And we've come together to make it happen so that we actually break down all the rigidity, all the locking down, the paralyzation that we have been experiencing because of everything that's been playing around. We have, most of us, if you're looking at a collective scale, have basically kind of almost playing a role that you've given yourself away to all other systems and all other constructs and all other perceptions and belief systems, and actually took ourselves in from an empowered state to a disempowered state, from a powerful being of creation to somewhat of a victim and somewhat being navigated what has been created as part of our experience. Now, there's a perfection in all of that, and all of it in one way or another serves us and is very powerful in the way we have chosen to play this game. Now, with all that's happening right now, many of us have been waiting for quite some time to really be part of this transformation that's going on right now. with all the changes that are taking place right now, many of us have been preparing ourselves to some degree, and some of us right from birth have known and have been ready to use more of your capabilities that come from different aspects of yourself, using not only what you're bringing in from the innate essence of your physical form that actually helped construct our beautiful design of our nature, of who we are in form when we're talking about form, but we also took on the most advanced aspect of the human entity within ourselves and also stepped into the next level, which we have chosen at this point in time to bring in our souls prepared for these changes, you carrying specific energies, carrying specific encodements and consciousness at this time. So with all of this that is playing out right now, as much as it looks as chaotic as it is, this was necessary to really activate much more movement for us. Now, we are compressing in our experience many changes that would have naturally taken a lot longer to take place. However, we're not trying to make up time, we're actually expediting so that we can create an alignment, not only with the energies of our solar system, our sun, but our quadrant of the galaxy and the universe, which has continued to evolve while we were playing the reversed, devolved state. Now, the souls, of course, as it came in and out, it would evolve. The human entity would evolve to a certain degree, but it was been bombarded with layers and layers and layers of this inverted matrix, inverted 3D and 2D experience, and the body itself too going through all these levels of polarization. Now, of course, Gaia has been upgrading, the sun has been upgrading, our solar system has been upgrading, and specifically recently in a more powerful way. And when I say recently, we're talking about some 30 plus years, but at the same time, all of this has speeded up more and more and more. Now, here we are on the third stage of this upgrade that we're going through, and there's going to be more, but in the third stage, that started in 2020, and all of the stuff that prepared it for it. Yes, we've pushed this thing to the max. We've gone through the stages where we have felt so restricted, especially with all these lockdowns and everything else that has come out, and the fact that we are, in one way or another, relaunching the opportunity again. However, this time we're even more prepared than the first time it was prepared or presented for us, and that we have chosen to engage, because many of us are starting to realize, wait a minute here, this is not the life I'm here to play. This is not the experience I have chosen. Even though I've played a very small life, or played a compressed life, or played in layers and layers of boxes, this, what's going on now, and what we've experienced for quite a few months this year, and now being offered this opportunity again, is like a more compressed box, a more restricted part, where we haven't been able to really experience ourselves in a more powerful way. But what happens? What took place? It kind of staged us to be to the point of really having that restriction, to the point where we actually said, no, we're activating within ourselves that free choice, that free will, that so forth that we have. And I'm going to talk about it more through this whole thing, through this episode. But, you know, activating that and saying, hey, now we are going to step up and start more actively than ever before to shape our reality. But there's a thing about shaping our reality. It is not the old reality, because a lot of people get caught up in the idea, and many of you are starting to realize that and already made some shifts, the reality of what this particular dream of what life looks like, where, you know, you have toys, you have wealth, you have relationships, you have all of this stuff, thinking that is life. Well, that's only a part of a dance, and most of those constructs, most of those ideas, most of the focuses and energies that were related to those constructs and through the different stages and versions of ourselves, yeah, gave us an enrichment of that type of experience. However, it does not match where you are and what you're choosing to create. Many of us feel if I have all the resources that I need, that I will be free. But in fact, you're not, because when you tune into it, and I know people that do have all of that stuff, do not feel free. Why do they not feel free? Because they are not being their fullest aspects of themselves. And that is the thing. And it's the true freedom is being 100% yourself, utilizing what you have as a capacity to create layers and layers of expanded reality. You're not here to play in the old world. You are here to express and be that new world that you are. As much as we've stepped into the organic 3D and organic 5D platforms, you're just starting to learn how to navigate through it and really participating in a very powerful state. Now, in this preparation, many of us have been preparing ourselves, going through these very powerful stages of purging and letting go old versions of yourselves, old energies, labels and definitions of things that may have played out in your life, and to prepare yourself. But at the same time, not only has Gaia been upgrading, our bodies have been upgrading. We have been going through a very powerful purging also from the body, letting go of all of these trapped emotional charges, letting go of these old patterns and blockages and so forth that, we've localized and stopped ourselves from flowing, because our natural state is flowing. The body's natural state is fluidity, playfulness, but it's also energy. So we've locked up a lot of these clusters, and that is changing. Even through the transformation that we went from a crystal state to a carbon state, that part is already reversing. So we have been going more and more into silicate and crystal. Now, all of us has had crystal within ourselves. It's not that we went fully 100% carbonic, but we have been kind of a cross between the majority of ourselves being carbon, another portion of it being silicate, and a very small portion of crystal. Now, the difference is that each time we go through these stages, we now harness much more frequency, and we are much more tunable and also much more powerful in the transmission. Now, that means it can utilize more of the energies that are coming in. Not only what is being streamed from our own sun, from our galactic sun, what is being streamed throughout our whole galaxy, all the planets that are connected to us and all the beings that are connected to us, because our bodies are made up of 12 different species, and I've talked about it in other episodes, and each one of those are opening up more and more, allowing more of those inputs to come in. So for us to be able to harness and utilize and shape and do all of that in those higher vibrations and higher states of being and higher consciousness, the body has to match it. And that's part of what's going on. Our bodies are becoming more crystallized and be able to harness more of that capacities. That's the physical part. Of course, the human entity has played a role in going into multiple incarnations, and these incarnations at this point in time, the majority of it, basically 2/3 of what is played up to this point in time, meaning 5,000 years of it being in its more natural state, the human entity, and having those experiences, what was considered organic 3D in an organic matrix, went through a stage of 10,000 years of incarnation where everything was backwards, being the inverted matrix, the inverted 3D and 2D. So it has many, or twice as many incarnations that were related to that aspect of where everything was backwards and it was in a lower state of consciousness. However, like I said, it does have the memory of the first 5,000 years. And that is now becoming more to the forefront and purging more of the other stuff that was gained and experienced over the 10,000 years. Now, that does not mean that some of the experiences it had, or many of the experiences it may have had along the way, that we discount it as something of non-value. But it is of value, because those experiences have given us not only a polarity aspect, but also gave us an opportunity to experience ourselves in a lost state, which was something that was not capable from its original design. However, was it absolutely necessary? No, but at the same time, it was something of a really appealing and of interest to us, so we had taken it on. So that is coming through. So here's your human entity that's carrying this history, this knowledge, but that is upgrading anyways, because the human entity, each time it reincarnates or takes on another physicality with another soul, you have to understand it's upgrading, because each and every soul that comes in feeds that particular human entity and also the physicality with these higher codes. What we're talking about, higher dimensional, multi-dimensional aspects, because each and every soul is not limited to planet Earth. In most cases, they're not limited at all in any way, shape, or form, because they will take on different forms of different species on different planets, on different dimensions, and a lot of times in different stages within the galaxy and universe. So it's bringing all of that in. And every time there's a marriage that goes on, which is basically at this point in time, the soul, the human entity, and the body, everything is being upgraded. So the soul is actually learning from all the different experiences. So is the human entity. And what the soul has to offer is upgrading the human entity and the body. And of course, the mind is going through a powerful transformation. And this is why many of us are feeling somewhat chaotic at times and may feel, old stuff like depressions and things of that nature, or feeling sad and all of that. Because what's happening, it's also rewiring, but it's also purging. Now, part of the purging that we're experiencing is it's also clearing our subconscious mind. Now, what we're talking about the subconscious mind, it's not losing the memory of your experience. It's actually letting go of those labels and definitions that were adopted along the way. And so that it basically can look at the memories, if it wants to use it in any way, shape, or form, as just a balance point or something that they can utilize without all of that. Now, the other part that we're going through, and we've talked about it extensively along the way in different episodes, was the ego mind, which was the artificial intelligence. That, in a way, it's actually shifting its role, and it's also at the same time diminishing its capacities to be able to navigate you to the degree it did before. It's, even though the polarity is still being projected, all this inverted stuff is still being projected, it's not at the same capacities as it has before. Now, so this is kind of setting the stage of all that's going on right now. Now, when we're looking at this, let's move on and let's start looking at some of the things we're going to play with today. So the first thing we want to look at is the political climate. Wow, depending on where you are in the world, there's a lot of it everywhere. Now, some places, like we're talking North America, they're going in through an electional process and so forth, and the dance that goes involved with that. In other countries, in other areas, they're also involved in the political climate too. A lot of that political climate involves medical and so forth about all of this so-called COVID stuff that's going on at this point in time and what is being pushed forward. So each and every government and control structures and whatever else are reacting to some degree or another. There's a lot of what looks like unrest. There's a lot of confusion. Now, we have to look at it in a sense where we tap into ourselves and we utilize our own knowing. What does that mean? What does that mean? You're tuning into the state of you that is what we call the observer, the part of you that is that sourceness within yourself. It's the part of you that has that knowing and that can actually see it for what it is. Now, I know many of us got caught up in the game and made the game super real, which is super fantastic for a while. And now we're actually reversing that part of it. So when we're looking at all of this that's playing out at this point in time, we're now stepping more and more of ourselves as the observer of the movie around us. Now, what does that mean? We're actually using more of our capacities to not become the movie, but to become the actor that you are navigating and shaping with the movie. So the movie itself is not making you take on a particular role. You're basically now taking the role that comes from the very essence of yourself to actually project or to be part of this beautiful dance of the movie that's going through. Now, the movie is calling forth in a very powerful way for us to make these shifts, because each one of us, as we're going through the process, is contributing in making these changes that is absolutely agreed upon and necessary from a collective scale. There's no one on this planet at this point in time, even as an extra, is not in one way or another in favor of all these changes that are going on. Now, let's go back to the political stuff. If you're going to be observing it, and many of us are observing a lot of the stuff that's going on, you're going to notice that things are being pushed to the max, where people are acting in such ways that even if it was to some similar degree before, meaning that you're looking at people that we have put in position of power, position of authority, position that would actually create and represent us in one way or another. And as much as they have been less than qualified, in matter of fact, most of it has been totally unqualified, but the power that we've given to that, we've been always taking in what's going on and adopting that as a way of life and saying, okay, they are the authority. They are the ones that are going to tell us what to do and so forth. And it matters what we select and put them in place. And then we go back into victim state. So we feel this false empowerment because we're going to elect, or we're going to allow certain people to go into position. And then right after that, we go back to the disempowered state of where they are now navigating your life, dictating how it's supposed to be and so forth. And then that state, we can go into victim state. And this is what we've experienced worldwide with this unrolling of this so-called virus or whatever else was coming through as the story or narrative or whatever that may be. And we went into victim state, not only victim to what this thing was, but victim to each and every so-called fictional authority that's been telling us how to respond and how to act and what to do, what not to do, who to be afraid of, what limits you have and so forth, which we have one way or another agreed upon, acknowledged in one way or another that I'm going to play that role. Well, a lot of that is being reversed in a very powerful way. But here we are, not only is the reversing taking place, but we're also now noticing more clearly that these role players are ramping things up to the point of what we can call insanity as a label, just as a name, just so that we can relate to it. A level of insanity, of incompetence, of saying, hey, we don't know what we're doing. We're not here to do this anymore. We are waiting for you to become empowered. Now, that's from a super conscious state, but not so much from a surfaced consciousness at this point in time. So when they're looking at all of that, they're really, if you look at the actors involved or the positional people that we put into place, they're really, really inconsistent, very polarized, very confusing, and they're actually making it so that you cannot miss it, that this is a chaotic dance. Now, of course, there's going to be a lot of people that are still very so-called, you can call it asleep or not noticing it, but as this intensifies, more and more people are getting on board. We've noticed, all of us around us, and everybody that's playing out particular roles at this point in time, that more and more people that would have totally ignored are seeing, this does not make any sense. How could this be? Things don't match and so forth, right? And even when they're throwing out science, medical, and this and that, it doesn't make any sense because it doesn't align. But that's not only the only part, because it does not match with where you're going and what collectively we have chosen to go to. Did you want to say something?
Carla was just asking if you've heard of the TLS, the light system. Have you heard of that before?
TLS.
The light system. I guess it's just something.
No, I don't. I didn't.
No.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm not aware of that. So.
Okay.
If she wants to explain what it is,
Yeah,
maybe I
maybe
can tune
Carla,
into it
if you
afterwards.
can explain what it is.
Okay. So with all of this is going on right now, And especially if you're paying attention to any electional stuff that's going on in the United States, part of North America, which is very powerfully reflected throughout the whole planet in each and every country. Nobody's isolated at this point in one way or another. I'm not saying that the outcome of that's going to impact everything. That's not the case. But what we're talking about at this point in time is we're looking at all the things that are playing out in, how can I say it? How it actually causes a ripple effect throughout, because the energies that is experienced anywhere at this point is very impactful for the collective, no matter where you are. And you can be as isolated as you choose, and this is how it works. But also what is going on within our solar system, galaxies, everything affects us in one way or another. But what we're experiencing on the ground, what we're experiencing in form, is even much more powerful in many ways. So right now, if we're looking at it, we're stepping into a state where we have made a choice that this system, governmental system, control stuff and so forth that we have been playing up to this point in time, is not something that supports our true nature, what you are here to do, what we had already originally agreed to experience within ourselves, not only physically, but on a planetary aspect, or being on a planet. So the restoration that's going on is the restoration of ourselves and the restoration of the planet. So in fact, most of all of these systems, if not all the systems that exist right now, do not align or support in any way, shape, or form what we have already started shifting into, which is that organic matrix, organic 3D and organic 5D. And I say organic because it's original design, and it is designed that reflects most of the enlightenment, advancement, and evolutionary, if you want to use that word, aspect of experiencing itself. So with all of that in place right now, we're also going to be looking at how we're going to be moving forward from this point. Now, I know a lot of emphasis and energies are put in being one potential leader or repeat of another leader, and there's all this battling going on, who's right, who's better, who's challenging each other, and so forth. And it's really uncovering a very interesting dance. And then you're also looking at all the different systems that come through it, which some of the systems that we're talking about is what we call mainstream medias and whatever else that's all involved in all of this, and what propaganda, what is restricted, what is allowed, and so forth. This is all part and parcel to help us to see more clearly that in one way or another, we are given the reminder that there is controls which we either adopt or continue to adopt, because we have for the longest time, continue to support, continue to empower, or we self-empower. We now break down all of that in a very powerful way so that it does not control us in the same way. Now, I know there's talk about, if one leader or potential leader comes back, so you're looking at leader number one, the one that's currently in place, or you're looking at leader number two, and these are going to give you two different outcomes, absolutely, but not really outcomes, temporary outcomes, because no matter what the stream is, it's going to go where it still needs to go. Now, one will give you one set of experiences, and the other one will give you another set of experiences. So basically, at this point in time, one may be favored in one way and the other being favored in the other way. Well, what happens? Well, if we're looking at a leadership of what is already existing, and we're just looking at North America or any place else in the world, but the one that is in the main focus right now, say, okay, well, we reinstall the same person in place as before. What happens? Yes, things are going to continue to progress in the way that it was progressing before, but that you have to understand that particular position is not about our solution. It's not about saying, okay, he's going to fix everything. Everything's going to be absolutely perfect because of it. Because if we continue to support this one, yes, we're going to have all of these things, the better economy, better healthcare, better peace, and so forth, which, yeah, those are favorable while we're still playing in the inverted stuff that we are purging anyways. But, that's the part. But what else is this doing? It's actually exposing a lot of what the systems are, because we're going into 2021 in a few months. 2021's main theme, main focus, main direction is disclosure. What does that mean? It's basically going to mean that we are opening the view of what the constructs and all the systems and all the role players involved of how we've been playing the game in this inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D that was apparently there. And the roles that they played is basically playing a restricted role, a limitational role. So that's the main purpose of the one that's in place, and the one that, has the opportunity to come back in to continue to that, to support that disclosure component. So that's going to follow through in the same manner, only accentuated even further. And it's going to create a stream of different experiences and so forth. Again, it goes back to, it's not the solution. It's not the end all in any way, shape, or form. We have to understand that. But it is a transitional. It is of service. It is of supporting us on one way or another. Now, certain aspects of this particular role player is also being supported as a favor from a galactic level. Now, is it the end? No. But it's, at the same time, it's saying, okay, we're supporting you, constructing you, and so forth. It doesn't matter what their characteristic looks like, because everybody has gone through a conditioning and programming of what we call the inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D state. You can't look at the surface. You got to look at what's inside of it. But we're not there to put anybody in a pedestal. Nobody's there to save us. Nobody is there to make the direction that we need to go better. It's just a different route with a similar outcome, because the outcome is still designed for us to advance and grow. So that transition would be bumpy too, but the transition will have a little bit more of a smoothness at this point in time. And so that's kind of what is playing out as option number one. Option number two, if this one comes into play, which is brand new, or has been around for a long time and whatever else in the whole effort, then that plays another role. So some people say, well, this is the way we got to go, or else we're not going to get on path, or if we got to go this way, or else we're not going to be on path. Well, the number two is still going to do the same thing, except differently. And what's it going to happen? It's going to accentuate much more polarity. It's going to accentuate much more chaoticness, much more enclosure, much more control. So we get pushed to the max, and guess what? We say, no, we're not supporting this. And then we come to further realizations, which I'm going to talk about as we go along. You were going to say something.
I was just going to say, so it's only going to happen if the collective needs a bigger push to wake up.
Absolutely. So these are both options made available, okay? And there's a lot of energy, like, these are the saviors. Some are saying the one that's existing is the savior. The other one is saying, no, the new ones are coming in, that will come in, even though the lead guy, which is playing that role, has been around for 40 plus years, playing that particular role. Maybe not the main guy, but second in command and so forth. So it's just showing, we have these two parts. Both will eventually get into this one outcome anyways. And what is this outcome? This outcome is self-empowerment. This outcome is designing a new world. But we got to break down the old. We got to let go of the old one that it lives in us, and the old one that is being projected. And that old version of yourself, the lower version, the unconscious version that we've played with, the programmed, conditioned version, the part that has been operating through the AI called the ego, that's the part that's purging. And this is why we've been going through what we're going through, major, 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 major purging within ourselves, to let go of all those versions and idea that this is life. We didn't come here to play a stagnant life. We didn't come here to live a small life in any way, shape, or form. We came here to play an expanded life, to play a true essence of life. This is why you're here. This is why you feel a sort of a higher aspect consciousness, awareness of excitement. Excitement because you are now participating in a much more powerful way, and you can see the beautiful results in everything through the transition. So that's where we're going. Now, it's up to us to decide, well, which one are we going to give power to? The collective has already made certain decisions, so it's swaying back and forth, and it's going to be very, very powerful. But I just wanted to make it very clear, there is a preference of a carryover, of a streaming, but at the same time, if it does go the other option, I guess that's the word, option, or the other path, that eventually, as much as it will create a completely different or somewhat of a different sequence of experiences, it's still going to get aligned and go where it needs to go. We have made the agreement. We are purging the rest of the projection of this inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D. We are now choosing to integrate, to become much more powerfully utilizing this organic 3D and organic 5D. And the purging and all of this stuff, we only have 2 years and a few months left in regards to how we can move forward and saying, okay, we are now fully integrating and we have purged all of that older world. Now, regardless, the intent is, okay, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, and I don't think I even brought in what I wanted to bring in here, but the political climate that we're talking about. Oops. The political climate. The point of all of this as we're coming along and as we are streaming all of this as part of this experience that we are creating a change within ourselves, we are reconstructing. So there's a handing off, which I'm going to talk about shortly, that will take place, because either of these roles are not going to be around for an extended period of time, even if there is, say, a 4-year path, because we don't have that much time to purge all of this. And that is a requirement that needs to be purged in the sense. So there's a handing off, and I will be talking about that as we go along. Let's see here. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that what we're looking at is, up to this point in time, what the game we've been playing is the fact that in somehow different people in different scenarios playing different roles of control structures and so forth that were put in place as part of this inverted stuff that we've been playing all these 10,000 years, and all the different roles that have been changing and different hierarchies and all of that stuff is playing. We're coming to the point where we come to the realization is that we just don't allow certain individual to decide what we have as a choice. For example, look at the present governmental aspect of it. Certain individuals were chosen. Now, okay, the one that's in place right now that has the potential to come in place, believe it or not, we have collectively agreed, and with our brother sister souls, to put that there temporarily for a period of time to kind of create the environment, to destabilize, change all aspects of it, and really accentuate certain parts, so we could use that as part of our changing that we had chosen to go through. So as much as that was put into place, it's just playing a temporary role that is best. But however, the way it's going to move forward as we're going along, we're basically going to be looking at as interviewing the potential temporary leaders. that means that we don't have just two options because one is supporting one and one is supporting another. It's about looking at various candidates, really looking at what they have to offer, what the team looks like, what is going to come into contact. So you're basically selecting it rather than leaving in the hands of what we can call incapable aspects of ourselves, or at least they're playing the role of incapability, so that somehow it creates this construct. You could see some of the stuff that's playing out right now. You put one person in place and they're putting other people's in place. And where's our involvement? Where's our selection? Is it in the highest good to support that individual in that particular position? Now, you can see it's not only just the position, layers and layers and layers and layers of position of incapable, unqualified, unable to really understand what's really taking place and the direction we're going. So moving forward, we will be looking at various people and saying, okay, if I'm here as an interviewer and these are my options, and what I'm going to say right now, even with these two so-called candidates, one in place and the other one wanting to come in place, what do? You let go of all judgment, all hatreds, all who's better, who's not better, who does this, who does not, who's yelling more than the other, who's blaming the other more than the other. You now have to go into the interviewing stage and say, okay, here are my two options. I'm going to put aside all this propaganda. I'm going to put aside all of the stories that are being said. I'm going to put aside all of this stuff. If this person with their team is going to represent me temporarily until the change, and I'm going to talk about that, which one, since there's only the option of two temporarily, which one would best represent what I see as a way that it will be most aligned in bringing what I truly, collectively choose to see unfold. Okay? If we need to clear out certain things, who's more capable? If we need to hide things and create more intensity, who do I choose? Because right now, there is hatred, judgment, comparison, all of this stuff. But you have to understand, is it yours or is it part of what is being projected to you? This is the thing that's really, really, really important for us to understand. And I've seen this with people, even family members, where they have a certain hatred or judgment about one of these individuals. And saying, reacting and responding to it. But are they actually looking at them from an observer point to see what energy, not only what they carry, what potentiality they carry, and what they can present that closely or more closely represent what you want to bring forth? This is the part we need to look at, because the thing is, we have to understand that we are being conditioned. And it depends on where we're going. It's part of the game, and we're purging that part of the game, but we're still involved in looking at individuals, looking at potential people to step into a particular role based on different stories, propaganda, who's saying what. If you really looked at the whole thing as an observer, you're going to look at it and say, why would I take that in? Let me tune in and see what matches best. And then you make the selection. Now, of course, the selections are going to upgrade along the way because we are now taking more of that empowered state. I'm hoping I'm making this clear that you understand it, because I've seen it with many individuals that when you go through the little exercise of saying, drop all judgment, drop all perceived idea that you've adopted. Oh, they're saying this on the media, they're saying that, and and then you're responding to whatever the propaganda is, whatever is being told to you. But is it yours? Is it your observation? Is it your own knowing that you're responding to, or at least sharing? Because then you get caught up in that wave and you will take sides based on what wave you connect to. Now, if there's a perfection to that, but at the same time, it is not your highest state. So it's most important for you to let go of all that stuff and be able to see the candidates and the role players truly. For example, some of the things that are playing out on certain parts of it, when you're seeing on the media, and it doesn't matter if it's alternative or whatever at this point, because it's kind of played out in both parts, the way they're talking, the way that they're presenting themselves, and what they're saying and what they actually mean, and so forth. If you don't get caught up in the wave of how they're speaking, and because you already have a preconceived judgment that's been already programmed in you, you get to see them and you say, oh, that's interesting comments, that's interesting way of seeing things and whatever else. Like, is that really reflect me? Does that actually match? Is that part of the world that I want to continue to create or support or project or anything of that nature? It's really, really, really super important to do that, and then you could see it in a completely different perspective. And I've done this myself, where I look at the thing and I'm going, okay, as a neutral bystander and look at it, let me just see what is being presented by both parties. And I'm not going to even take the characteristics into play, because yes, everybody's got characteristics, but most of their characteristics are not even natural characteristics. They're programmed characteristics. We all have programmed characteristics that we may have adopted along the way, because look, you've been brought up through your parents, you've been brought up through education, you've been brought up through the working world, you've been brought up through the media of all types. We're talking about movies, shows, radios, communication with one another. And all of it has shaped our mind with these stories, programs, belief systems that were all constructed from this inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D state of being. So as you see all of that, and you're looking at it and say, oh, that's very interesting. Let me look at all of this. How does this all support? How does all this play? Well, you can't see clearly when all of that is in the mix. And this is what part of this purging is going on, so that we can see it. So what I would say is go into that observer state more powerfully, then you could see things much more clearly. Go ahead.
Carla is asking, do people have to feel the energy of each of the candidates regardless of what they say?
Yes, that is very helpful, tuning to the energy. You can tune into what they're actually saying besides the words that they're saying. Like one of the individuals, people say, well, there is a horrible person and has been in power for the longest time. And or longest time, but for the last sequence of it, right?
4 years.
4 years, yes. And close to that. But you look at it and you go, oh, this and this and this, they did that, whatever it is, right? But when you're tuning into it, and I remember when back in 2016, when it was being introduced, when I was tuning into this individual and say, yeah, okay, this person has a certain characteristic, a certain brashness about it and whatever else and so forth. But what's his intent? What is coming from that? When you're tuning in and say, this one is committed. Yeah, maybe a little skewed in how the approach is, maybe, but committed to a certain degree, where there is, oh, he's selfish, he's this, he's that. But when you're tuning into it and say, no, that's not what the message I'm getting from it, what I'm tuning in, there's a level of care, a level of responsibility, a level of really wanting change. Okay, maybe the change may not be super ideal, but it is ideal for what it was necessary for and for the purpose, right? So at the same time, even being bashed tremendously in whatever's going on, there was always that. Where when you looked at the other candidate, when you're looking at it, you can sense that it was dishonest, misaligned, and so forth, and was not going to match, even though even the other one didn't match 100%, but it had a closer match. you can sense it didn't matter what was being said. When you're really looking at and tuning into it, their energy was a very low polarized and lower state. Now, of course, they're role players, and as the true essence that they are, they're all souls, they're all sourceness and whatever else, but you're looking at that. And this applies to all over, whoever. I mean, we're in Canada, we have the same situation, even though we're not in an electional component at this point in time, but in other parts of the world. You say, okay, who, by tuning into not only their energy, their intent. How many times have we dealt with people and when they're talking, you see them saying one thing, but you could feel something totally different. And why do you feel that different? Now, you don't want to get caught up in the idea of what other people have said. You want to discount all of that. You want to go into your pure state. You're going to tune in and say, they're saying this, but that's not what I'm picking up. That's not what I'm sensing at this point in time. And that's the thing. So if you go into that and say, well, I'm the interviewer, as the interviewer, what am I looking as? Skill sets, capabilities, energetics, intent. Who do I want to put in place right now? Yeah, okay, there's only two options right at the moment in this particular Western thing. But there's only two options. Which of the two are going to best represent with the changes we're doing? Yeah, one is disrupting things, absolutely. And that is necessary. The other has a different approach. However, it's still that approach is going to force us to go into our state and, tear everything apart. The realization that no one has power over us is powerful when you start to get that realization more and more. Okay, so let's take a look at the next thing. I might just switch over to another page. Okay. So what are we looking at? The role of new leaders and the transition to a council. Now, we've made an agreement. Temporarily, certain individuals and a certain amount of these systems that are in place are going to take a more temporary position. So their temporary position is going to shift. That means there's going to be a lot of role players that are going to be pulled out of the equation. And it's already started some time ago. More of it, especially in the disclosure stuff, as that comes to the surface, we'll make more of a choice of going clear, 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 get these positions out of place to bring it more to the forefront. But the ones that are coming in are temporary leaders at this point in time, or taking on a role of a leader, which we will collectively navigate to shift into a council, because the intent is, and we've already agreed, to create no more governmental controls, no more controlled what you can call educational system, medical systems, and legal systems, financial systems, and so forth, to the construct that we exist right now. We have chosen and made the agreement, as we're going through these transitions and what we want to plug in, we're going to go to a council. What does that mean? It means it's a group of people that their whole dedication is to assist humanity through this transformation that's taking place. So they will now work with the people rather than tell the people how to do it. They're going to work with the people to see what best suits, and it's going to be fluid. It's not going to be as rigid. Go ahead.
Okay, Annie's asking what energetic contribution is made by not voting, and Lex is asking, what if voting is not interesting in a game one does not feel they want to participate in?
Well, that's a choice you can make. You can choose to say, well, I don't want to participate. The other part is, okay, out of the two, what do I want to support that will bring in, at this point, the opportunity for us to be able to go to the outcome that needs to be, that would be most supportive at this point in time. So, yeah, you may not feel that I want to contribute any part of it, but the way you do it, if you're going to go, I'm going to vote because I'm afraid of one versus the other, then you're not going with the best of intention. if you're making a voting because hey, if I don't, it can go the other way, and I may not, then I may regret it or anything like that. That's not where you want to go in. You're going to say, okay, right now I feel that this would be the best, that best aligns right now for the next part of the theme that we're going through, which is the disclosure, which is, whatever direction we want to go, and best represents us temporarily, because you have to remember this is all temporary and it's going to continue to shape and change, specifically when we're talking about next year into 2021, because at this point in time, through what we're going to be going through the next few months and then stepping into the next stages of where we're going, there's going to be a lot of transitional aspects that will take place, and even the way we're going to be doing things after the January, February timeline or time period, let's call it that. So you're going to notice a lot more changing. So you say, okay, how do I choose to represent it? You were going to say something?
So if you say you're not going to vote, the energetic contribution would be if you want to see a different kind of world that doesn't even include any of that kind of stuff, then your decision to not vote, you're holding the space for that to open up.
Yes, you can do it either way. Okay, so the thing is, when you're going through the process, if you choose to vote, that's an option. If you choose to vote with the intent, this is not my savior or what's going to change the world and so forth. You can say, well, this individual is playing a particular role. However, this role, as I vote, I am instructing from an energetic point, from a consciousness point, that I'm instructing them, putting energy in them, putting the thought forms in them, putting the codes or whatever is necessary in them to be able to most align with what needs to play out. So you're applying energy, if you choose to vote, with the world that you are choosing at this point in time within yourself. If you choose not to, it's the same thing. So if you choose the other way, you could turn around and say, okay, I'm going to now hold the space, hold the energy of this world that doesn't support either one. Now, the fact that you're voting one or the other is basically at this point in time, you're still applying your intent, but your intent can't be that they're the savior. Your intent cannot be, or at least it's less effective, if you're saying, well, if I vote for this, that things are going to be better. No, the thing is, this most aligns, and that's why I'm putting my energy there, but I'm still the one that's empowering, navigating, and assisting as a collective to be able to have things roll out a specific way. Now, if you choose not to, then yeah, you still hold that space. I'm going now create this world, which is now guided in a way where it matches who you are. Now, you are fully in charge of your own reality, absolutely, but your reality also affects the collective. So it's not just, segregated or separated in any way. It's still part and parcel of what, rolls out. So what I was saying, you're looking at the new role of the leaders. Is the role of the leaders is to dissolve, start to break down a lot of the very rigid, controlled structures that exist. And that's already started, even with the individual that came into play, and it is playing at this point in time. So their role is to take down some of the structures or expose that so that we can put more of our attention to allow that to dissolve, unplug what is no longer necessary, unplug all that held that old version of our world and our reality and our collective, start to unplug that, and whatever choices they're making through our support, because as we put our intention that we start to already set the stage so that we are experiencing it in a much more fluid and directional way that supports the new aspects of ourselves, new world that we are unfolding. And then that transition will lead to what I was saying is to the council. And the council is again another stepping stone. It may be there for a little longer because the council will help bring harmony, balance, and so forth, working with the people to say, okay, we're not going to no longer support this separation. We're no longer going to create all this fragmentation and everything else that's played out. We're going to now create an environment where we can be ourselves. Now, that starts with us. It has no dependency on what anybody in so-called leadership or council will dictate. The council just kind of plays a role to say, okay, we're bringing together. Now, the council is going to be made up of people that are quite conscious, people that have a higher awareness of where things are going. It's not going to reflect the inverted 3D, inverted matrix and 2D. It's not going to support that. It's going to support what is organic 3D and organic 5D and really create kind of a, not even a structure, but kind of an outline and supportive outline with our involvement, more active involvement, and bringing that in. So that's kind of the part of the role of the new leaders, is to lead to the transition. So it doesn't matter which of those parties come into play at this point in time. At some point, they will have to leave their rank, and they will do so very easily because of the fact that they realize now they're done with what they needed to do and they can step forward. Of course, like I was saying, one leads to one direction, one leads to another direction, but eventually it all meets up to this. How we get there, what it's going to look like, how much chaos, or whatever it is, it's kind of our collective intent. But that's why I say be the observer, tune into yourself, tune into the individuals that are coming into play, because what happens is, look at it this way, the moment you judge people, the moment you see right, wrong, good, bad, one better than the other, it's going to create a completely different energy of how we experience the movement forward. And at that point in time, we may get stuck more for a longer period of time in victim state, or feeling that in some way someone has more power than you, or anything of that nature. I mean, there's many facets that we can look at, but really it's up to us how we choose to do it at this point. Okay, so that's the transitional part. The other thing I wanted to bring in is the fact of rules and laws. Okay? There's a lot of rules, there's a lot of laws, there's a lot of acts, or whatever they call them. What else do they have there? Laws, rules, you know, the different systems that are out there, governments and so forth. Anyways, I can't think of the other word. But anyways, so if we're looking at rules and laws, one thing we have to understand, and as weird as this sounds, and many of you already realize it, all rules and all laws, unless we're talking natural law, regulations, thank you, regulations and so forth, are made up. Does that sound weird? It's made up. And in fact, not only are they made up, they actually have no power. Never did, never will. Ownership of each other, ownership of saying, oh, you know, we're playing with this thing called maritime law or natural law or anything of that nature, and saying, well, you know, we played this system and now we're owned because of a birth certificate or anything of that nature, whatever we want to give power to it. Well, you have to understand that that actually has no power over us. Never did, never will. No laws, no regulations or rules actually exist as rigid. Now, we have what we can call certain agreements that we will play within a certain level, which sometimes we call natural law, allowing ourselves to be ourselves at the same, never impeding on other aspects of yourself, allowing everybody to be themselves. But, you know, when we're looking at that, because sometimes people turn around and say, well, you know, if we allow everybody to just be themselves, it's going to be chaotic. It's not. Yes, there's going to be a requirement, which we are doing right now, to purge all of these programmings, because most of us are reacting, responding, thinking, and acting a certain way based on how we've been conditioned, how we've been programmed. So just to understand that, because we got to reverse a law, or we got to go through the legal system to turn off this binding around us, or these rules, or whatever it is. If we're going to play in the inverted matrix, and we're going to play in the inverted 3D, 2D, yeah, you may have to go through that because there's a legal system that seems real, seems empowering, or anything of that nature. Unless you cooperate, unless you agree to do so, unless you say, okay, I'm going to take it on, which was an agreement we made. We're going to take the rules. Doesn't matter how it comes about, who says it, who does it, whatever it is. But that was a choice for us to play in that. But it's not really where we're at anymore, a requirement to play in that fashion. So the reason I'm saying this is that nothing is hard and fast. Everything is fluid, everything is flexible, and it really doesn't govern you unless you say, okay, I'm going to play with those rules, I'm going to play with those laws, I'm going to let it govern me. Now, there are many control structures, there are many systems that are very integrated into that and very projects that in a very powerful way. As authority, as, leadership, as control, and so forth. Well, those are false too, in a sense, because in fact it's made up. Like, look at it this way: how could anyone have more power than you when they're all equal? They're all playing different roles. We just agreed to play victimizer victim, or playing as someone empowered state while we're in this empowered state. You got to look at it this thing, and it's just an agreement, a dance, or whatever you want to call it, that goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and we're playing it. But that's the part that we're dissolving. So as much as we have adopted the ideas, or taken on the idea that something has more power over us and can control us in any way, shape, or form, it's not making it real. It's not making it, it's real from a perceptual aspect, through an experiential aspect, but it's not from our construct. As who we are, as these powerful beings that we are, and as this playground we're playing on, there is no authoritative in any way, shape, or form at any point in time that was ever put into place. Now, the illusionary authority, illusionary rulers, leaders, better than you type of thing, was only plugged in after this inverted matrix, the inverted 3D, 2D was applied, when this control structure came into place, and individuals were put in place to play that role, because we accepted the idea of having that experience. All right. Now this all ties into everything that is going on. Media self-exposure. What does that mean? Well, look at the dance. Look at the dance that's going on. How much are you hearing? How much are you seeing of narratives, stories? It's this way or that way, and very opinion-based, and very emotionally charged based, very polarized based, and so forth. What is the media doing? It's playing a very powerful role to control you, to convince you, to shape your mind a certain way, for you to respond a certain way. Well, you could say, well, that's a narrative. It's propaganda, which is true. But what are they actually really doing right now? They're exposing themselves and say, hey, look, we're not here to govern you. We're not here to convince you. We're just playing that role. But it's really you self-empowering, you to use your own navigational system. So what are they exposing? Authoritative. How many of us have given authority to the news, to all of this stuff that is in the media, as that's the way of life? That is the truth. How many of you have heard fake news, real news? It's interesting when you really observe it, that it's actually opposite. Pretty interesting in this inverted matrix that we're still playing in. Not that the inverted matrix is still active. We're still projecting that. We're still playing it through our AI, which is the artificial intelligence part, which is the ego. But when you look at it and you say, well, there's real news, fake news, and all this stuff, well, if you notice it, it's all backwards. So, but it's actually doing that so that we stop taking everything at whatever's being told to you, what is being shared with you, and you tune in. You tune in, you see what is and what isn't. If it's going to push your emotions one way or another, good and bad, mostly bad, usually the case, then it's actually saying, hey, we're just letting you know that we are playing with you and we want you to become empowered, even though they do not see it on a conscious level. Most of the people that are playing that role buy into the idea, I have to do this because I'm being told, I don't want to lose my job or whatever it is. But on a collective scale, the media is saying, hey, we're not any authority, you are your own authority. We're only projecting this idea of how to do it. This is why the level of chaos, the level of confusion, the level of going one way to another, the way it selects certain parts and plugs it in and expands it when it's not even true. And you see certain parts of saying, they take a lie and they make it look so real, and then they take the truth and they don't even touch it, or they hide it or find it. I mean, most of us have been seeing that, there's censorship, there's control, all of that stuff. The media is saying, hey, it's time for you to become more empowered. We don't want you to depend on us because we're showing you, like the leaders are showing, we're incapable. We're not qualified. We're not capable in telling you what to do and how to live your life. The same thing with all the different medias that in regards to the movie and so forth, showing that old version of ourselves. And many of us, as you're shifting, you can't even watch that anymore because you see the bigger picture. You can tune into it and say, wow, okay, that dance is for whoever wants to play with that dance, but I'm going to hold my space. I'm going to hold that essence that I know within myself. For me to sit down to watch a commercial, me to sit down to even watch a news media of some sort, especially the mainstream stuff, or to even watch a lot of times, a movie, whatever it is, that is still reflecting an old version of the inverted 3D, 2D, inverted matrix way of life, is very difficult because it does not resonate, it does not match, it alters your vibration. You go, ooh, that doesn't feel good. So this is really us empowering and using more of our capability. So the media is self-exposing itself, saying, hey, don't put value in us, be self-empowered, even though you can't see it that way. You only see the chaotic, you see the polarization, you see the control, making you believe a certain thing. Now, if you're in an empowered state, you're in a victim state, if you're in whatever you hear or see, you put power into it and overshadow or override your own knowing, then you're going to be influenced. You're going to be shaped to believe whatever they're presenting. But there's a purpose to that, to push you further, to finally say, wait a minute, I'm not going to give any power to this. I'm not even going to go there anymore. It's done. I'm not choosing to play this game in the same way. So that's kind of the other part of it. Where are we? All right. So now we're going to talk about the galactic influence. There's so much talk, from people that, are channeling, some people that are going into whatever it is. There's a lot of galactic influence. Well, the galactic has a certain level of influence because we've solicited their assistance. But the one thing about the galactic, they're not perfect. They're also going through different processes in themselves. However, they are keen to assist us. So what are they doing? They're assisting us in ways where we may not be able to do so yet from a larger enough scale. So they're making sure that certain polarities, certain extremes, certain going a certain direction that would, impede the progress that we need to make without interfering in the level of what we are choosing at this point in time to experience and to empower ourselves with, they're playing that particular role. They're monitoring the energies. They're actually allowing certain things to come into play, certain things not to come into play fully. And if it's being introduced, it's introduced, and then it's modified slightly so that it does not go to the certain level of extreme. Because once they do a simulation, which is kind of very instrumental, and I've been involved myself in the sense of observing some of the simulations that they do. The simulation is, if this rolls out, what is the collective response? Are we creating enough shock to create the change, or are we going to create enough shock to paralyze, to somehow go backwards in the progress that's been made? So these are some of the things that is being closely observed as these things are being introduced, as these things are being presented and projected forward. Their influence is also making sure that at this point in time that certain individuals in certain role playing are supported to some degree. You have to understand some of these, even the leader that's trying to get back in, has been, with all the bashing that's going on, with all the attempts that's going on, they're playing a role to kind of make sure that it doesn't go the way that certain parts of it would love to see happen. So their influence is that. Same thing with viruses or anything else that is being brought up to the surface. Again, they will monitor, they will see what the outcome would be if rolled out, and then they will modify it so that in fact it does not, and I'm going to talk a little bit more as we go along about that, it does not impact in such a way where it creates a shutting down, a lower vibration going into deeper state of fight and flight. Because a deeper state of fight and flight and survival does not and is not conducive to higher consciousness. Look at it this way. The media, everything else that's projecting fear. Oh, if I go one way or another, if I don't go this way, I make a poor choice and so forth, the fear. What happens when we're in fear? When we're in fear, not only do we lower our vibration, we also reduce access to your own knowing, your own sourceness, your own capability of an empowered being that you are. You step out of observer and you go into victim. You step out of observer and you're going into this very low survival state, which is not even natural for us, but it was programmed in us. It was programmed on so many different levels, and that is part of what we're purging out anyways. So there is a benefit to having that experience. However, at the same time, as much as we have the benefit of that experience, it is not conducive in the way that we think is conducive to be able to, for us to, to move forward in a much more powerful way. So in looking at all of that, the Galactic does play a role with us, but never, ever, ever, ever taking away from us our capacities and capabilities. It wants to make sure that we are self-empowered. We are the ones that are redesigning the planet. The other thing is, you have to understand, the Galactic is made up of different species. These particular species, yes, they select some of the ones that are more aware of and are more familiar with planet Earth to some degree, and some were one of the part of the engineers that were kind of the retooling engineers and also the reseeding engineers. But at the same time, many of them have not really had a full human experience, don't have the full access, and are not connected to the same degree as we are. So there are individuals on the planet that are, yes, in one way or another, feeding back and a level of communication and experience, because you're in a body and you're going through all of the different stuff that we're experiencing, that is instrumental for them to receive that feedback and to make adjustments along accordingly on a collective scale. So the Galactic actually relies on us. And I remember years ago when I started working with them and working with other beings specifically, and doing the experience of ships and whatever else that we're going on to, I did notice that there was such an interest in communicating and also understanding and observing what my journey was and what I've been observing as the different things roll out, so that they would have a better feel for it, a better understanding. And at times they would download some of the experiences that, were had by going through this journey. And some of you have done the same along the way. Others, have are a representation of them. So some of them, what we call starseeds, may be a representation of them that they have a closer connection with. And this is why some people feel more connected to a specific species versus another, and also have interactions with that particular species, which will, maybe not take form in the same way as we do, but they will present themselves and share certain things, but they're also taking feedback from themselves, for themselves, to be able to better assist us. Now, their job is to assist us, not to impede. Now, of course, we've had other beings and brother, sister souls that have been impeding and trying to hold that old, what do you call it? That older version, the part that was created through the inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D, and support polarization, and also the separational component, and also light and dark part, which light and dark are just different spectrums of light, but at the same time been holding that. And they've worked very diligently with some of us here to escort them off this playground and terminate some of the links that they had to upload more of that. So part of those involvement was, the inverted matrix, projection, the satellite being the moon, the shutting down of certain individuals in key places, so that they were no longer being in position, even though they may look like they're still around, but there's interchanging that has occurred with that. But and also the parts that we don't know about, the stuff that was deeper into the subworld, if you want to call it that. Many, and mostly all of them have been escorted off, because we have chosen on a collective scale that we're not going to use their services any longer, that we're no longer going to accentuate the polarity, we're no longer going to emphasize in lower spectrums of light and lower vibration and creating something of that nature. So that has been their involvement in that. And then, of course, there are many other, like the Pleiadians and others, that are working very closely with us, because they have their ships running around our planet, including the Galactic Federation and the monitoring that that goes on. So their influence is to assist us so that we stay on track as much as possible. Now, they do allow us to go into some deeper, darker states temporarily, only for us to be able to activate more of our light. A lot of times what happens? You go into a dark room or a dim room, for example, you don't have to illuminate as much, because you still could see certain things. But sometimes you go into a really dark room, you have to illuminate. You have to turn on your flashlight. Well, what is your flashlight? It's you turning on your heart, whatever, at this point in time, so that you illuminate your essence, so that so in some cases you have to dim it to the degree. So they allow that. They allow it not because, they are making the choice. No, they're supporting us, what we're instructing them, okay? They're not doing anything that is overseeing or overriding any of our collective. Go ahead.
And overriding any of our free will.
And overriding any of our free will. So anyways, that's their galactic influence, and I will cover some other stuff as we go along. And there we go. So, going into the galactic part, as I was already saying, on the health front and issues, look at it this way. There has been, forget about what's just now or was released at this point in time. Certain role players have agreed from some time ago to release what is concerned or labeled as a virus, or whatever you want to call it. It was constructed with low intention, with a very specific narrative to compromise the human physicality, to create an exit in very powerful ways for many physicalities to drop off the planet. Well, you can't really drop off, to merge with the planet at this point in time, but no longer having a singular representation of itself. Okay? So even what was released and that we are moving through at this point in time had a very different intention, a very different energy, had a very powerful component about it that would have compromised the physicality in a very powerful way. However, our galactic brother, sister souls had seen that that would would misdirect the direction that we intended on a collective scale, and specifically the ones that have come here very specifically to direct this, being ones that are accessing more of themselves, to have that rollout would not be complementary in any way, and would actually set things back even further, and would not allow many of the souls to do what they came here to do, because the compromisation would have, in one way or another, affected the stream that they had possible. So what happened? They got involved to the degree, with the agreement from the collective, being us. I mean, they deal with several collectives. They deal with the collective of our planet. They deal with the collective from our galaxy, the collective from our universe, but also the collective of our solar system, which is all the planets that are part of our solar system. And what they do is they look at it and they say, okay, well, you know, from a collective perspective, this is not going to be conducive, so what are we going to do? We're going to change the codes. Even if the codes had a certain specific intention to create a certain outcome, they went in and changed the codes. So now, when it is released, which is allowed to release, it now doesn't play the same effect as it did before. Now, this has happened several times, and certain outcomes have been mandated or played out in a way that would support in different stages. At this time, especially going into stepping into 2020, and with the choice that we wanted to make, it was not beneficial to activate what the original intent was, even though it had come from some time ago, and whatever the intent was, and also the narrative or anything of that nature. So they went in and changed the code so that when it played out less than what normally would wave through each and every year as considered as a flu or virus of that. They dimmed it. They changed it so it wouldn't have the effect. However, they also allowed to create the illusion that it was much more powerful, and not in the sense they were part of that. They said, okay, we're going to let it roll out, and we're going to let that part roll out, but we're going to take the potentiality, the capabilities, what it was originally designed not to function that way, so it gives humanity the opportunity to have a part of the experience but not the full experience. The other thing that came into play, which we have to realize, each and everything that's rolled out, because we have a tremendous amount of rolling out. We're talking vaccines, we're talking about medication, we're talking about what is being sprayed in the skies, whatever that's going down, what we're exposed to at this point in time, would extremely affect our physicality to much more than what we are already experiencing. Now, there's a certain level of free will that you can choose to have activate any part of it and use it any way, shape, or form. Yeah, you can turn around and say, oh, you know, look, people are dying all the time. Well, you have to understand that it's always a choice. It's a choice for the highest good for those individuals and the participants involved and the collective, that they have the free choice. And I'm going to talk about free will shortly, but at the same time, one of the other things that was that we are being downloaded with codes that would take whatever other codes that have been transmitted or put into any of these so-called manufactured components, so that it does not use it. So it's almost like an antivirus, if you want to call it that, but it's not. It's a sense where those codes can't activate. The other thing is, as our frequency increases, we get out of the range of those codes even being turned on. So if you look at it, of what is playing out right now, or has been playing out, and what the potential out of that, the effect, the impact is almost non-existent. And most of what we're seeing is not anything to do with what is being projected as that. That allowance of that projection is only for us to become much more empowered to say, hey, do I give power to this or not? I am a free will spirit. I am a being. I'm sovereign and everything else, whatever you want to call it. But you can actually turn on, turn off whatever you choose with your own choice. It is not mandated in any way, shape, or form. Even if it looks like something has imposed on you, it was an agreement to be imposed, an agreement to have that form of exit or that sequence of experiences. You were going to say something. Go ahead.
Jane is asking, so I had to step out for a second, so I'm assuming you're talking about some of the good changes that were going to take place in the future. Anyways, she asks, will we be able to see these changes after 2022 purging, or will this take more time to manifest in the physical in conjunction with our raise in consciousness?
Well, right now we have collectively agreed that we are giving a certain amount of time or sequence of time to be able to get all this purging and to bring this more organic natural state as an integration and experiential. And this is the thing. So you're going to notice the changes are already occurring. Now, yes, at the same time, we're seeing much more polarity. Yes, we're seeing extreme of that, but we're also seeing stuff falling apart. Though that falling apart is creating openings. Now, some of us already are living a higher reality within ourselves, and we're already constructing. So we're actually creating, co-creating collectively, not with everybody involved, but the ones that have chosen to do so, to already create this new world within each other that have chosen to, create that world in the organic 3D and also in the organic 5D part of it. So you already are going to see changes within yourself, but it's going to be much more reflective in alignment along the way as we continue to go. Now the timeline, the cutoff point, of course, is the 3 years, which is basically end of 2022, before going into 2023, so that we're basically purged a lot of what is already in place as the old world. Now, that doesn't mean it all is cleared up, but then we are much more integrated. We are no longer dragging along the inverted matrix, the artificial intelligence, the inverted 3D, 2D along anymore. We're not bouncing back and forth. We're basically staying more aligned with that organic 3D and organic 5D. And then, of course, the changes are going to occur even further. So you're going to see more of what is more of aligned with you. But that doesn't mean we have to wait till then. We're already seeing it, and much more is going to show up in 2021 and more in 2022 and then more in 2023. Now, if there's a reduction in movement, hey, that will depend on us. However, we're being stimulated. We're being really supercharged in many, many ways. We have some very powerful back-to-back encodements coming through, energetic pulses coming through, stimulation coming through, reactivation within ourselves coming through, and there's going to be some really powerful changes, and also going into the December solstice in the 21st, which is, there's so much preparing for that, for another pulse. And then, of course, we're already going to notice some more differences in the new year, specifically shortly after the first and second month. More. But it really depends on us. And this is why everything that we're experiencing right now is not to override us, but at the same time to assist us to really embody much more of those capacities, because that we are the ones that are redesigning all of this. So that new world that you're experiencing within yourself is what you want to bring in. So on the health front and the issues of there, we are very much, and when I say we, all of us on a collective scale, and much more specifically the ones that actually have chosen to participate in a very powerful way, and also our brother, sister souls that are supporting us from other dimensional aspects that are participating. And you have to understand, there's portals, energetic portals opening up, and gateways, whatever you want to call it. There's many different pulse energies coming through. Those are stimulating our natural state more and more, so that we don't have to play with all this health stuff in the same way as before. Okay, so some of this we're going to move through it a little faster because, you know, I've talked about it many times before. The past. Okay. Many of us are still reflecting on what happened up to this point in time, are looking at the past. Oh, these things have played out and it's taken a long time, or the fact that we relate with the past, personally and collectively. Now, the collective, of course, is in categories. So you have your personal reality, you have the collective with your family dynamic, you have your collective in different environments that you play with, friendship and so forth, your community and so forth. Now, if we're looking at the past and giving power to this, let me just put it over here because I keep blocking it. If we're going to continue giving power to the past, meaning what played out, what that meant, the energies involved, because there are energies involved. There are states of consciousness involved in our past. Older versions of ourselves were involved. Other playmates that played at those older frequencies were involved. The past being, okay, all of these things that happen, not only to us, but on a collective scale. If we're going to look at it and say, wow, look at all the corruption that played for the last 10,000 years. Oh, you know, these beings were wrong and they did some horrible things for us. Or we've experienced horrible things with other playmates and whatever else that we've played. As long as we're holding that, that really, really slows us down. It really holds us in a bind way, which makes it difficult for us to really flourish, really progress in a powerful way. So it's really super instrumental for us to let go of our past, to live in the moment. And I know I've talked about it many times, but right now, the stimulation of living our past from the polarized capacity of the lower frequency is supercharged. Okay? Even these on the political form, look at all the systems that exist. It reflects the past designs in the inverted 3D, 2D, and inverted 3D. If you're really looking at it, it's about dropping the past, acknowledging it, appreciating every aspect that it provided for us, loving the experience, and then letting it go, freeing it. Your past, the past of anything. Don't get involved. And I say that loosely because in a sense, it's your choice. If you're going to get involved, let's use those words. If you're going to get involved, that you need to balance what happened to you, or what did not happen to you, or what anybody's done collectively, or any group, or any elites, or anybody. If we need to get righteousness and balance and all of that stuff, you're bound. You're bound, you're restricted, you're not using the highest aspect of yourself to be instrumental to play it out. You're going to be instrumental in a different way where you're going to just support that polarization. With the disclosure, especially going into next year. Disclosure has been happening, it's been coming to the surface. However, there has been more and more, how can I say it? What's the word? Not only rejections, but ignoring it, choosing not to see it because it looks too messy, it looks too horrific, it looks this way or that way. Well, it's going to become much more powerful so that you cannot avoid it. But it's just so that we shift our power away from that. So the thing is, the letting go of the past is absolutely beneficial, necessary at this point. Go ahead.
Oh, Peter is just asking, are we living in a projected hologram?
Yes, I mean, everything is a hologram. We are holographic spectrums of light within the field of sourceness, creating realities, creating experiences. Why do we do this? We do this as source to experience our capability of creation, observation of creation, being part of that creation and experiencing the creation so that we continue to move forward, to advance, to experience, become more experientially enriched and so forth. Everything is a holographic expression. So A planet is holographic. We are individually holographic. Our solar system is holographic. Our galaxy is holographic. And universe, right to the point of sourceness. But that holographicness is part of what is assisting us because, hey, we're not stagnant beings. We're not, as source, we're not stagnant. We want to play. We want to experience. We want to bring other levels of experience that we haven't been able to do so. So yes, it is that. A realization of that will make it easier so that we don't get lost in the intensity of it. So you could say, okay, it's just a holographic projection, but the holographic projection is of service. It's very conducive. It has a purpose behind it. Yeah, it gives me experiences I couldn't have without it. It gives me opportunity to really experiment, to really experience that I wouldn't be able to do without it. So, you can use it in that fashion, absolutely. Is it real? Well, what is real? Everything is real and non-real. This is how we play the game. So going back to the past, it's really instrumental, very powerful for us to drop the past, to drop every aspect of that older world. Whatever happened, forget about balancing. You can balance like this by just saying, hey, great, learned, whatever. It's negated, it's neutralized. Because what happens is, we're full spectrum. We're 0 point. Yeah, we've experienced the polarities. And at one time, we needed to go through the polarity game. That's been gone for over 35 years. The necessity for that. The encodement for that. Now more than ever, it's not about balancing, I got to fix whatever's there. No, you see it as the experience and you move on. And that's how it works most effective. Well, two last things to play with. Free will.
Move it to the side too, honey.
What's that?
Just move it to the side.
Okay, I'm going to move it to the side. Let's take this and we're going to move it way over there.
Into the past.
Into the past. Yeah, good point. Free will. Let's make this even bigger. Okay. It doesn't want to work now. There we go. Free will. If anybody's ever told you that you actually have free will, they were wrong. Okay? You have no free will. You are a victim. You are non-free. You cannot make a choice. I'm just teasing you. Free will is always there, can never be taken away. It is one natural law that has no exclusions, ever. And those free wills are on different levels. There's a free will from a physical perspective, which is still part of Source, part of Gaia. There's free will from a human entity perspective. There's free will as a soul, and there's the free will of the full combination. Okay? What does that mean? Free will. You are fully, and always have been, and always will be, in charge of your experience. But there is a way around this that may seem like we don't have free will. It doesn't matter what any narrative is. It does not matter what polarization there is. It does not matter what dark forces or light forces or anything of that nature comes about. It does not matter what is playing out through the different structures and systems that exist on the planet. You always, 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 always have free will. It cannot be impeded, cannot be reduced, it cannot be taken away in any way, shape, or form. Free will is your source essence. It cannot be removed, cannot be affected in any way. However, this is where the big one comes. The only allowance there is through free will is I cannot touch it, I cannot take it away, and never can be done by anything. However, I can convince you how to use your free will. That can be done. That there's an allowance. There is an allowance. Okay, doesn't write over there. I think it does. There is an allowance. Did I even spell that right? Okay. Allowance to convince you, to make you believe that you may not have free will, but how to use your free will. That's the only thing there is. And then, because we have been convinced to use free will a certain way, we get to the belief that we don't have free will because we had an experience of some sort. When there was a modification 10,000 years ago, and this has occurred on different planets too, maybe not at the same time 10,000 years ago, it was at different stages. And you have to understand, this offering that we are purging right now has been offered to planet Earth before. Okay? Atlantean times, Lemurian times, and other times before that. They were offered, utilized, had different outcomes, different experiences. And it's been offered within our galaxy, it's been offered in our solar system, it's been offered and utilized in those different levels, and including the universe. Now, of course, most of us have been purging all of that stuff. So the thing is, the free will can't be removed, can't be affected, cannot be, but you can. So here comes this dark energy, so this unconscious state, what you can call control structures that were coming in, the inverted matrix, the inverted 3D, the inverted 2D, and guess what? Look at it. Look at what's going on and has been going on. We are always being programmed, conditioned, as long as we go into that unconscious state, how to make choices. What is good or bad? What means something and what doesn't? How we choose, it all is based on the same thing. It's all allowing us to be conditioned to use our free will for a narrative. So here comes a negative force, what you can call negative, a polarization, a lower consciousness, and says, oh, I can't touch free will. This is part of natural law. It is part of source creation. We cannot interfere no matter what. We don't have the power. We don't have the right. We cannot do it. However, we can convince them how to use it. That's the only allowance that existed. And that's what we're reversing, where we're not being utilized, or we're not utilizing the convincing part, the programming part. And that's why we're going through what we call the deprogramming, where we are letting go of giving our free will. We can't give it, but allowing us to be convinced how to use our free will. The media does that. Every single system does that and has been doing it. We're just realizing it more and more. And you're hearing it from me as I'm sharing, because you know inside, because I've kept hearing it for years. We have no more free will. And some were spiritual beings or people that have brought higher consciousness. Well, you have to understand that it's not possible. It is not possible ever, ever, ever. But what is misunderstood is that, oh, I don't have control of what I do. Well, you do, but you're convinced that you don't. Go ahead.
I think what it is it's not that we don't have free will. It may seem that way, but I think if we really exercised our free will, there's still fear and programs of consequences of exercising our free will.
Well, yes. I mean, this is the other part of what's playing out.
Because if we truly just stood in that, we could. But there's still the fear program always is playing out in the background. Like not wearing a mask, not doing this, not doing that. You know, if you want to really truly exercise your free will, you can. But we have these programs that are, like you said, we've been convinced that we don't have free will.
Well, the other thing is afraid of the free will, like you just said, because it's true. If we're going to say, well, I'm not going to wear the mask, okay? You say, I have free will. I'm not going to wear the mask. But there's a fear that, oh, I'm doing something wrong, or that, I really don't have free will. If you have any of that part in, then, the interactions that occur, just being spotted that you're not wearing a mask, and possible repercussions or whatever else that may come will play out. But at the same time, you have the free will. Yeah, do I participate or not? But you don't have any of that fear. Then you become somewhat invisible. That was a conversation we even had today with somebody, Marco. He makes a choice. He's in a place where you have to wear it all the time, even on the streets. He chooses to go wherever he wants without it. Nobody says anything. Why? Because, hey, yeah, I'm choosing not to do so, but not in what is it called? Not compliance. What's the opposite? In confinement? No. What's the word? When you're opposing it. There's compliance, but anyways, you're conflicting with it or whatever. There's a word. I can't think of what the word is at the moment. But you're not going in and saying, well, I'm going to be righteous, I'm going to do this, and I have free will, whatever it is. What's that? Defiance. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Defiance. You're not going in a state of defiance. Because most people, that's what they do. Well, I'm just going to defy this because I don't believe in it and I don't want to do that. Well, what's happening is you're using free will in the manner that they're telling you to use your free will, which basically still ties you up in a way. So when you're looking at that, you've always had free will, okay? I know I talked about it for years now, many years actually, a few decades, but it was always a concept that people had a difficult time. Yeah, well, we have to understand, we have free will to participate with certain. You say, well, I didn't have free will to choose my parents. That's not true, okay? Every part saw that was complementary to have a very specific experience. Oh, I didn't have any say, who taught me or where, to go to school or whatever it is. That's not true, because we had chosen to have the enforcement to go down that path so that you would have that experience, to be programmed, to be conditioned, to see how that works out, to look at that version of yourself and so forth. You've always had free will. Yeah, maybe you at some times had been convinced how to use your free will. Absolutely. But that convincing was an agreement. You had to make an agreement. You had to acknowledge it. You had to comply. You had to whatever. It's still a choice. So you have free will as a soul. You have free will as a human entity. You have a free will as a body. And you have the overall free will as the mind. Okay? Because all of it is available. It never can be taken away. Never was taken away. It doesn't matter. Most of the smoke and screen part that has been played out, it's just been that for us to have a particular experience that we had agreed to go through. Now, of course, we're starting to realize that, hey, I never lost the free will. I can choose the free will. But again, even when you choose not to go down that path and you want to use the free will in a different way, please understand what you're going through and whatever you come, it's going to bring out certain programs, certain parts of you that you want to clarify, and that's why you're choosing to see it. So that's your free will. Always there, never can be taken away. It can only be reshaped a certain way, and so forth. So let's put this up here, free will. Last item. I don't know what this one is. Well, what the heck is sovereignty? I'm just teasing. Many people are talking about sovereignty. Well, I want to become sovereign. Okay? Newsflash. We are always sovereign. We always have been sovereign. We've never been owned. We are all equal. We all are having different experiences. That there is no legal system required to become sovereign. It's either you unplug from the game or you stay playing in the game. Sometimes some of the process of becoming solvent, or sovereign, becoming sovereign, goes through the reversal of what? A legal system. Well, when you look at the legal system in that regards, you're basically using the inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D system to unravel this illusionary, because it's all illusionary. We were made to believe, like I was saying earlier, laws, rules, ownership, control, all of this stuff. Somebody being superior to you or being the leader to you or anything of that nature. Those are not real, never have been. We've just chose to comply. We just chose to have that experience. But it does not mean in any way, shape, or form that that is an actual fact. This is another natural law. Sovereignty. We've always will be, always have been. As source, we have created individualization, experiential aspects of itself, fully sovereign. Because if we're not sovereign, we don't have the variance necessary for us to have certain experiences and to really evolve. This is why each one of us has slightly different signature, in some cases bigger signature differences from a soul, from a human entity, and from a physical representation, because all of them have specific signatures that range certain frequencies. Now, of course, we also have what, twin aspects of it, which is just one other match with the same, but again, it expresses differently. It goes through different life streams and different playgrounds, different dimensions, and so forth. So the natural law or natural guideline, that's interesting, at this point in time, is that we've always had sovereignty and never, ever can be removed. So yes, when we realize that, it doesn't matter what construct, what certificate, what you've taken on, unconsciously or unconsciously, because most of the time, you say, well, okay, some of the regulation is maritime law and all of that stuff that's come into play. You say, well, they took our sovereignty away. And this is the thing. That was an illusionary projection. They can project that. It can be projected. But it is up to us to utilize it, to comply, to get engaged in it, or else it does not work. It does not exist. It never did, never will. We are always sovereign. Now, the other part about the sovereignty that we wanted to cover, I just had a good thought there, or that my soul streamed and I forgot it. What's that?
Came and went.
Came and went. The other part of oh geez, what was that? I was going to say, I thought that was pretty important. You share something, sweetheart, with sovereignty. What do you feel about that while I tune back in what I just lost?
We are sovereign?
Yeah. How does that feel for you? Have you ever felt sovereign or feel that you've been sovereign?
Yeah, I guess so. I think it goes hand in hand with the free will piece because, again, if you truly feel sovereign, there isn't anything that can shift you or dictate how you live your life. I don't think I fully feel sovereign all the time. I think we all have our programs still to work out to get there.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's not that we're not. We are. It's just, relinquishing any programming that says otherwise. And being able to live moment to moment from that higher perspective of who we truly are. And I guess taking responsibility as well for our outcomes, our reality, and what we want to create. So sovereignty would be, taking the action that you need to take in any moment that keeps you in alignment with your true authentic self.
Absolutely. So thank you for that. It came back. So the thing is, like you made a very good point. We are programmed to believe that we're not sovereign, that somehow we have to be owned, or we have to own, that we have to earn. Did I spell that right? Yeah. Earning. We have to earn it. We have to earn our sovereignty, or that we have to earn everything that we come. See, we have to understand, part of the game that we chose to experience was that that part being removed. Because what does sovereignty really mean? That you are in charge of your own design and experience. Look at it this way. The fact that you choose to come onto planet Earth take on a holographic expression as physical form, you have full access to all that is available on the playground we call Earth. All resources, everything, to be shared with every aspect of ourselves. There is no ownership. There is no controlling of ownership. That's natural law. You cannot own, but you are part of it as long as you're here. The moment you leave, there is no saying ownership because of the government distributes that. They can't own anything either. No one can own anything. You can take a stewardship role for something, but you don't own it, you don't control it because you have full aspects. So it's like this. If I'm going to take the ownership, I'm going to take ownership of this little piece of parcel of planet Earth. That means this is what I'm restricted to. I own this part. And that's it. I own this piece of land. I own these digits on a computer, or we call money. I own these goods or anything of that nature. Yeah, you can take stewardship, but at the same time, you're not restricting it to that. Because realistically, you step on planet Earth is your full playground. No dividing of borders and countries and all of that stuff. That's all fake. It's all made up as the inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D. When we were designed, we can take stewardship of certain areas or any part of it, but we basically were free to move around. We were free to be able to say, I'm aspects of all of this. But of course, we were in a more natural state at that time so that we didn't have to take charge and remove things from others or compare or say that in one way or another I'm better so I can take a bigger chunk or anything. No, you can see as long as you're playing there, it restricts you. You play in a smaller version of yourself. So the idea that in some way that we're non-sovereign or that we have to earn our way, that was never the case. Even plugging in monetary, I'm not going to extend further with that because we really went into some longer time here. But this gives you a good basis here. The fact is that we are in a world where we are collectively creating accessibility, which is our natural law, which is part of our experience, to be able to play more fully in all aspects so that we can move around and experience anything and everything as we choose. It's about motion, it's about movement, because each part of the world holds a certain energy and gives us a certain experience and so forth. So we were never designed as our natural state, which we were part of the designing, to be locked and localized in any way. We adopted the idea, we have complied to that idea for a period of time, but that's the thing is, we're starting to realize more and more that those borders, those limits, I can play here, I can't play there, I have to earn my way around it, including resources, okay? We came here to express and be our fullest potential. We didn't come here to be conditioned and programmed to work in creating resources for survival. Because we really look at it, and we're going to look at it a little more closely at some other point in time in another episode. But we didn't come here to experience that. We didn't come here to do that. Now, of course, we knew that was made available because that's how we constructed it, based in the polarized world that we are dissolving. So we knew we were going to get to play with that, and we were going to get to experience it. But that's not what we came here to be. We came here to be ourselves. And the thing is to create an economy, doesn't matter what legal system or whatever game and projection, that does not comply with our natural state. It does not comply with so-called natural law. It doesn't, and it won't, ever. We created the illusion of it within this holographic projection for a period of time to try that out, to see how that felt. and how that experience, but that's what we're reversing. So whatever resources are required is made completely available. We do not, in our natural state, require a carrot being dangled, or the fact that you got to go do this particular job for us to survive. That is not our design. We are here to flourish. We are here to use our creativity in technologies and art and music and other forms of expression through creating sustainable aspects of ourselves, experiencing food, you name it. We have a passion in that. We have a natural state in that. And everything is designed, or was originally designed, and what we're bringing back into alignment is for us to have whatever's required to be the fullest expression of ourselves, to do what we love to do. And, you know, this whole idea that if everybody just did what they love to do, that we would not have a flourishing way of life. No, we would actually flourish more than ever, because right now we've been conditioned to be pigeonholed in doing something because of survival, because of the fact that, you know, this is absolutely necessary. And I've said this before, and we will not entertain it further today, but, you know, if you look at, just as an observer, just as a player and as a curiosity, look at 95 plus% of everything that exists on the planet, what is really supportive, really nurturing our true essence. Look at a lot of the archaic stuff that we weren't even necessary to roll out, but we had chosen to do and participate that as services, as products, as technology, as way of life, that we tend to believe it was a necessity for us to flourish, well, in this case, survive. That was just an experiment that we chose to comply with, chose to participate with, and nothing more. Is there something you wanted to say, sweetheart?
No, not at this time. There's other questions, but it's gone way too long.
Okay. Is there anything that really applies to this, or?
Something about our massive crime against humanity. Do you want? I don't know if you want to answer.
Our mask against humanity.
No. Okay.
Read
The
it
question is, are mass crime against humanity and child abuse via oxygen deficiency?
Nothing is a crime. However, everything is an experience that either supports us, allows us to flourish, or not. You have to understand, even what we call crimes are a mutual agreement. But those mutual agreements are also now dissolving, because we're not going to give power to it. It's like the free will. We got convinced that we need to play the role this way, so we used our free will to go through that. Is it a crime? Yeah, based on the 3D, inverted 3D and 2D and inverted matrix, we could see it as that. But when you see it from a bigger perspective, from a higher perspective, from a true free will, it's a compliance that we are no longer choosing to comply. You have to see it that way for us to dissolve it. Because if we're going to go into seeing right, wrong, good, bad, we're still playing in the game and we're still empowering it. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, in regards to, natural law of do no harm, the mass do harm. So is it against the natural law?
Well, in a natural law, we have the freedom to decide much rate. So if you're looking at it and saying, okay, well, wearing the mask reduces our free oxygen coming in and allowing us to breathe more of the carbon dioxide, that, of course, you have to understand, while you're wearing a mask and you reduce the oxygen level and the freedom of breathing, then you're going into activating the program within ourselves of fight and flight. So you go into more fear. You go into more of a lower state of consciousness. You access less and less of more of your sourceness as applying it to the experience. This is the thing, is that if we choose to comply, yeah, you're going to have the taste of it, but at the same point, you have the freedom to do so. I'm no longer choosing to comply. And if you have to comply because you have to walk into a business or anything of that nature where they give you a hard time, you can put it on, but at the same time, you're not going to give that much power to it because you see it as a game, and then the restriction or the reduction of oxygen will not be impactful in any way, shape, or form, or at least not to the certain degree that you think. So the compliance is still our compliance, but saying, okay, we need to play the game this way, we have the free will to choose to do so or not so, but the free will does not restrict only to do I comply or not. The free will is how we interpret it, how we internalize it, what we activate within ourselves too. So if we're going to activate fear, yeah, you're using your free will to activate fear and to experience fear and to go into survival or anything of that nature. But at the same time, you have to understand that is still part of your free will. And you have the choice to say, how do I choose to comply? How do I choose to experience it? How do I choose to react to this? How do I choose to navigate with this? So there's many levels to that. Free will is not just carte blanche, okay, I have the choice of what choice I make. Yeah, there's many, many choices you make. Just the fact that you've complied, you've made the free will choice to comply. Yes, it's true that you can be convinced how to use your free will, but you know, the more conscious you become, more aware that you become, you notice now, I do not need to be convinced how to use my free will, and I'm not even complying to the fact that I need to be convinced or that I have to follow any particular narrative that tells me how to use my free will. You have to understand the programming that we have experienced and the programming that we do experience at this point in time as we go along, you know, is shaping our free will. And that's what the part that we're reversing. That's why we're purging other aspects of ourselves. We're purging old programs, because that, you know, is part of the tools that we use on how to navigate our free will. So thank you guys. We're not going to go any further. I mean, wow, 2.5 hours. I can't believe that we've gone that far. I know sometimes it overwhelms people when they look at the videos and say, oh, can I invest 2.5 hours? Well, what I would suggest is to watch it in segments as you choose to go along and use it, because, I mean, it's an opportunity for us to be able to experience. So we'll be back next Tuesday. We were intending to do possibly another one this week, but it doesn't look like, because we have certain things that we need to take care of. So we may not be able to come back online until next Tuesday, and then hopefully we can add more to it and try to shorten these things. I know I've said this several times, but it hasn't been always easy. I get on a rant and then it just goes on because everything spins into another part of it. I'm hoping that everything that's been shared has stimulated a lot of the things that resonates within you. What doesn't, it's okay. I mean, we give you the most powerful truth essence of it, but the truth still lies within you, meaning does it resonate or doesn't resonate. I found it many times for people, well, what may not resonate right now resonates later on. Why? Because you were prepared to take that as part of everything that's been shared and will continue to be shared. You will have the free will how to plug it in as part of your reality based on the preparation and how much value and power you've given to certain programs, stories, belief systems that have been, you know, circulated, but has also been internalized. And that's the thing. So I thank you again for co-constructing this beautiful dance, for being the powerful beings that you are, for participating. Thank you. You know, if any of all of this is very powerful for you and our tools, please, please, please share it. We want to get it into the hands of more and more people. Not only that, you know, do the subscribing part, and I know that we've been putting the banner up, the subscribing, the notification, the commenting, and so forth, because all of that allows us to be, you know, more available to other people. If it resonates, please support us in the work that we are doing. You can contribute financially along the way. It's very helpful for us at this point in time to be able to put more of this content. And there's much more coming out, because there's some really powerful stuff rolling out very shortly. I will be posting some other talks I've done and also other interviews that we've done very shortly. And we're going to break and separate some of the content so that they're in chunks, especially the Q&A stuff that we've utilized. So until next time, go have a blast. Thank you again for everything. So go out and play.